Well, first of all, I want to say to Dell State that I'm very excited to be a part of this exhibit. Very excited to be a part of Points of Juxtaposition. Many people don't know, but I do dabble in sculpture. I dabble in a little bit of photography. I am a photography instructor, but the pieces that I specifically handpicked for the Dell State show, I went back to my drawings, and basically I wanted to bring in some of the two-dimensional design that I've done. So again, I picked a portion of drawings, and then I also picked a portion of digital work. And for me, it was like blending the old with the new. And what I mean by that is I was drawing since I was about 4 years old. And I can still close my eyes and still remember some of the images that I drew at a very early age. And so the pieces have probably about a 15-year span on them, on the ones that I brought in. And you can see where I go from realism to something that I call spiritual realism, which is a concept that I developed myself. Of course, not realism, but the spiritual portion that is in those drawings. If you look at the drawings, if you look at the one between a rock and a hard place, you'll notice that there are layers, the same way that someone would draw or illustrate digitally. But I like to layer my pencil work. And in those layers, I try to capture the scene behind the scene or the scene within the scene. And that's where the spiritual reality comes in. I'm a very spiritual person. I believe in the spirit world. I believe that it is the unseen that creates the scene. And ever since I've been a young man, I've tried to incorporate spiritual concepts into the drawings that I've done. And again, you can also see this happening in Calvin's War. I met a young man in Washington, D.C. I probably met him about, I want to say 4, maybe 5 years ago. And very interesting, I knew immediately when I saw him, he couldn't have been more than 21 years old. Although in that photo, he looks much older, but that's pretty close to how he looked. And I walked up to him. I knew that I wanted to photograph this young man and I wanted to draw him. And so I walked up to him and I said, "Hey man, can I take your photograph?" Which was a very bold and brave thing to do in Washington, D.C. I had a lens where I could have ripped his image off and just took it, but I didn't want to do that. I wanted to ask him, and then it was an opportunity for him to make money. And so I actually paid him for about 20 images. He thanked me. And you would have thought that I had asked him to pose for the front of a national magazine because he was so proud to be a part of that photo shoot, where he actually stuck his chest out. And for one moment, you could tell he wasn't homeless. But I took a series of shots, maybe 20, to create that image. And the reason that I call it Calvin's War is because you could actually see the war within the young man. And so there is a portion of swirls going around his head in this piece of work. And that is the mental and the emotional war that I believe that he was in and a part of. And then there is, you'll notice that there is tension, and there is heat, and there is vibration and aura coming out of his body that speaks to his spiritual war. And then you'll see that along the top of it, you see things that look like symbols of semen, and that speaks to his genetic war. So this young man has known war, in my estimation, all of his life: spiritual, emotional, and physical. And I wanted to capture all of that in one work of art, which is what I believe I was very successful at doing. My drawing is actually taking on a different type of concept. I still like the reality. I still like the surrealism, but I'm beginning to break away from that. And that break is good. I'm beginning now to do more digital work, which I have found is more freeing. and more liberating. And so in the pieces that I brought there to Del State, there are, I forget the number exactly off the top of my head that I brought, but these pieces, one is called Frustration Within the Negro Vortex. And what I did was the work actually started as a pinhole camera shot. If you look at the piece, that's a pinhole camera shot. And I took that pinhole camera shot and I brought it into a digital application, and I began to create a vortex or a swirl. And there have been so many things, I think, that have caused frustration, not only with the African-American, but for this piece of work, definitely for the African-American. There have been certain frustrations that have been a part of my existence in America since 1963. There are headlines that you'll see swirling in the work of art. One of the headlines has to do with the laws during civil rights that were passed. But then after these laws were passed, you saw other headlines that came out that said these laws have been passed, but the Negro must now take it very slow, which is a very interesting concept. It's either law or it isn't. Why do people have to take it slow in living out your civil rights if this is now the law of the land? Why would you have to take it slow if it is the law of the land? And so all those different frustrations you can begin to see in the work, and they actually appear in the guise of headlines that are swirling. You'll see that there's a spoon kind of stirring the pot in that work of art. And that, again, shows some of the frustrations that I myself have experienced, and others within the African-American community that I talk to on a daily basis have also, have also been a part of, those frustrations here in America. The other thing, you'll notice that there is a picture in that work of art of Lyndon Baines Johnson, who was the architect of the Great Society. The Great Society was just a diabolical system that he designed and put together, and he made no bones about it. He put it together with the destruction of the Black family in mind. Remember that there was a time in America that if a family was hurting, if a family did not have food or wanted welfare or help or things that, things of that nature, what he said is that the father has to be out of the home. If the wife or the woman and the child want help, the father must be out of the home. And that's what the Great Society did, where people actually went around and said, is your daddy in the home? And so that piece speaks to those frustrations. But my hope is that as we live, and by the grace of God, we will overcome those frustrations within ourselves. We will rise higher than the negativity that is in the land. And that's what that piece champions. In the other pieces that I did, actually, each of those pieces speaks to a specific family member. I really wanted to create works of art that dealt with my family. And so each of those are aunts and uncles in each of those pieces, and some specific characteristic about them that made them a pillar, that made them an asset, or possibly made them a liability. But it was how I saw each of them, their strengths, their weakness, all of those are captured in those digital pieces. Again, I blended for Del State my love of pencil and graphite with my love now of the digital game, the digital arts, digital illustration. And so I hope that the works cause you to think when you stand in front of them. That's my greatest desire, that you are caused to think when you look at the work. It should promote conversation and it should promote thought. If it does not do that, then I have failed as an artist. So I hope that the pieces that I have included in my portion of the show have caused you to think deeper, have caused conversation, and have caused you to want to go back and perhaps be a much stronger artist. That's all that I have. Again, appreciate Del State, appreciate being a part of this show. And I hope that at some time soon, I'll be able to come and work with both your instructors and the interns. Again, thank you all for having me. Thank you.